Let's talk about that sixth sense. You know, that gut feeling that warns you something is wrong, way before you have any logical reason to think so. Well, it's not science fiction. It's actually a really fascinating and very real part of our biology. Today, we're going to dive deep into how this internal radar system of ours works, where it comes from, and, this is the big one, how you can learn to trust it without letting it completely run your life.
So let's just start right there. I want you to really think about this for a second. Have you ever walked into a room, a place that should be totally fine, and just felt this immediate, overwhelming urge to, nope, turn around and leave? Or maybe you've met someone new, and they're smiling, they're saying all the right things, but something deep in your gut is just screaming no. It's an incredibly common feeling, but we're so often taught to just brush it off, to think we're being irrational. Well, today, we're going to give that feeling the respect it absolutely deserves.
Okay, picture this. You're at a party, music's going, people are laughing, everything on the surface looks totally normal. But then your friend leans over and says this. You kind of look around trying to see what they're seeing, but you can't spot a single thing that's off. Still, you trust them. You both head out. And what happens? The next morning you get a text. A huge fight broke out just minutes after you walked out the door. How did they know?
Or how about this one? You're walking down the street just lost in your own world, maybe listening to some music, and then for no real reason at all, this sudden, weird impulse just makes you step off the curb and cross to the other side of the street. A second later, you hear that awful screech of tires and the crunch of metal, and you turn around to see a car wreck right in the exact spot you would have been standing. Where did that impulse come from?
Right? We call it intuition, a gut feeling, a spidey sense. It feels mysterious, almost magical, doesn't it? But what if I told you it's not magic at all? What if it's your brain acting like a supercomputer, running these incredibly complex pattern recognition programs, processing thousands of tiny little data points from your environment, and it's all happening faster than you can even consciously think? It's less about magic and a lot more about a kind of subconscious biological math.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to break down this human radar system piece by piece. First, we'll talk about what it actually feels like to have it. Then we'll get into the downside, when that radar gets stuck on high alert. It's a state called hypervigilance. Then we'll dive into the amazing neuroscience of how it all works. After that, we'll look at some real-world examples that'll probably feel very familiar. And finally, the most important part, we'll talk about how to turn this whole thing from a source of anxiety into a real manageable asset.
You know, the ability to sense danger sounds like a superpower, and honestly, it can be. But for a lot of people who have this heightened awareness, it often feels way more like a curse. And that brings us to this state known as hypervigilance, which is really at the core of this whole experience.
So what exactly is hypervigilance in clinical terms? Well, it's a state of being on high alert all the time. It means your awareness of your surroundings is just dialed way, way up. It means you are constantly and totally exhaustingly scanning your environment for threats, and not just the big, obvious ones, but the potential, subtle, hidden ones too. It's like your whole nervous system is just permanently braced for impact.
And this slide, this really nails the difference. Think of it like a high-tech security system. For most people, that system is on a moderate energy-saving setting, right? It goes off for obvious dangers like a car speeding at you, but for someone who's hyper-vigilant, that sensitivity dial is cranked all the way up to 11. You're not just scanning for the car, you're scanning for a tiny shift in someone's tone of voice, a flicker of an expression that lasts a split second, a change in the vibe of the room. You're basically treating a normal dinner party with the same level of threat analysis as a potential war zone.
And living like that, with your alarm system always blaring, man, it has a heavy, heavy cost. It leads to this deep physical and mental exhaustion, because your nervous system never really gets a break. You end up living with this constant low-grade hum of anxiety that just becomes your new normal. You might find yourself, without even thinking about it, clocking all the exits the second you walk into a room, or replaying conversations in your head over and over, looking for hidden meanings. And so often, it leads to being dismissed by others as paranoid or just too sensitive, when really, you're just processing 100 times more data than they are.
So how does this actually work? I mean, how can your brain possibly know that something bad is about to happen before your conscious mind has any idea? This is where the science gets really, really cool. So let's pop the hood and take a look inside.
Okay, so when information from your senses, everything you see, hear, feel, comes into your brain, it travels down two separate paths at the exact same time. There's the high road. This is the slow, logical route. Information goes to your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that analyzes things rationally. But there's also a low road, and it's basically a super fast shortcut that sends the raw data straight to a much more primitive part of the brain,
This path is all about speed and survival.
And that shortcut, the low road, it goes directly to your amygdala. The absolute best way to think about the amygdala is as your brain's smoke detector. It's this ancient part of our brain, and its only job is to scan for danger. And if it detects a pattern that it connects with a threat from your past, it does not wait around for your logical brain to catch up. It just pulls the fire alarm immediately, flooding your body with adrenaline. That sudden jolt in your stomach, that wave of dread that comes from nowhere, that's your amygdala hitting the big red panic button before you consciously even know there's a fire.
And this, of course, brings up a really important question. Why are some people's smoke detectors so much more sensitive than others? Why does it seem to go off so much more easily? Well, the answer, so often, is that their past experiences have carefully and meticulously programmed it to be that way.
See, if you grew up in an environment where you always had to be on guard, where missing a super subtle cue, like the sound of a certain footstep or a tiny shift in someone's mood, could lead to real pain, your brain did exactly what it was designed to do. It adapted to survive. Brain scans have actually shown that these kinds of experiences can literally change your brain structure, causing the amygdala to get bigger and more reactive. So what feels like some mysterious intuition is actually a highly sophisticated trauma-informed pattern recognition system. You have this massive internal database of danger signals that people from safer backgrounds just never had to build.
Psychologists actually have a name for this incredible ability. It's called thin slicing. It's your brain's power to take a very, very thin slice of an experience, we're talking just a few seconds of observation, and make a surprisingly accurate judgment from it. Your unconscious mind is that supercomputer, just constantly running patterns on everything. Nonverbal cues, microexpressions, tiny changes in the room. People with a really well-tuned spidey sense are basically elite thin slicers. They don't know how they know, their brain just processed all the data and gave them the final answer as a raw feeling.
Okay, so that's the theory. Now let's see how this all plays out in the real world. We're going to look at 3 super common examples and break down the science of what your human radar is actually picking up on when you get that feeling.
All right, first up, a scenario that I think a lot of us have unfortunately been through, the charm offensive. You meet someone new. On the surface, they're perfect. They're witty, charismatic, saying all the right stuff. Everyone around you loves them. And your logical brain is checking all the boxes going, yep, this person is great, but your body is screaming the total opposite. Your stomach is in knots, maybe the hair on your arms stands up, and you just feel this really strong, unexplainable urge to get away from them.
So what's really going on here? Your amygdala is picking up on incongruence, a mismatch between what you're seeing on the surface and the emotion underneath. The words are warm, they're complimentary, but the micro-expressions, those tiny involuntary facial movements that last less than a second, they're telling a whole different story. Maybe a story of contempt or coldness. Perhaps their smile is missing what scientists call the Duchenne marker. That's the crinkling around the eyes that signals a real, genuine smile. Your conscious mind is being fooled by the charm, but your amygdala, it sees the predator's mask. That gut feeling is your brain telling you it just detected a lot.
Okay, here's another one, and this one's especially common for people who grew up in tense households. The atmospheric shift. You're at a family dinner, right? And on the surface, everyone's talking, they're laughing, it seems fine. But then all of a sudden you feel it, a change. The air just feels heavy or thick, tense. You can't put your finger on why, but you just know a fight is about to start.
This is such a brilliant example of your brain's ability to aggregate massive amounts of data in real time. You are subconsciously picking up on dozens of tiny signals from a bunch of people all at once. The slight way your uncle's posture just stiffened, the almost unnoticeable drop in the volume of the conversation, the way 2 people in the room are suddenly and very deliberately not looking at each other. None of those things on their own is a huge deal, but your brain gathers them all up, combines them, and delivers the final report to you as a single powerful feeling, tension.
And finally, let's look at the classic street smart instinct. You're walking down the street, maybe it's at night. Someone's walking towards you from the other direction. They don't look particularly threatening, there's no obvious weapon, no aggressive stance, but every alarm bell in your body just goes off, and without even thinking about it, you immediately cross the street to create some space. Okay, the science behind this is absolutely wild, and it goes way back into our evolutionary past. What likely just happened is your primitive brain thin-sliced their gait, their style of walking. Research in criminal psychology has actually shown that some individuals with predatory tendencies have a distinct way of walking, one that's often marked by a subtle lack of sync between their arms and legs. You haven't taken a course in gait analysis, you didn't consciously notice it,
But the ancient part of your brain, the part that evolved to spot hunters on the savannah, it recognized the hunter's movement pattern and told you, loud and clear, get out of the way.
So, if you're someone with this highly tuned radar, the goal is never to get rid of it. You can't, and honestly, you shouldn't even want to. It's a valuable survival tool your biology worked really hard to build. The real goal is to learn how to manage it so it doesn't just run your life and cause constant draining anxiety. So here are 4 practical, science-backed steps to turn this from a source of anxiety into a genuine asset.
We're going to walk through these 4 steps, one by one. First, how to acknowledge the signal without just getting lost in worst-case scenario thinking. Second, we'll talk about how to adjust its sensitivity to match where you are now. Third, we'll cover how to strengthen your nervous system so it can handle the stress of an alert. And finally, we'll look at how to turn that unconscious feeling into a conscious, usable skill.
All right, step 1 is maybe the most important because it's all about ending the habit of telling yourself you're crazy. When you get that danger signal, that lurch in your gut, the very first thing you do is stop dismissing it. You have to validate it. Just say to yourself, okay, my brain detected something. This feeling is real data. That's it. But then, to stop the panic spiral, you use the maybe rule. Instead of jumping to, oh my God, something terrible is definitely about to happen, you shift to, something might be off here. I'm just going to stay alert and aware, but I won't assume the worst until I have more info. This honors the signal without letting it completely hijack your system.
Step 2 is all about calibration. See, you gotta remember, your radar was probably fine-tuned in a past environment that was genuinely dangerous. It's your job, in the present, to consciously teach it that your current environment is different. So when that anxiety surges at a dinner party, you pause and you ask yourself this exact question. Is the actual objective threat level in this room right now equal to the threat level of my past? Just asking that question engages your logical brain, your prefrontal cortex, which can then have a little chat with your reactive amygdala. You can basically tell it, hey, thanks for the warning, I appreciate you looking out for me, but we are safe right now. This is not that. You are manually turning down that sensitivity dial from an 11 back down to a 3 or a 4.
Step 3 is about strengthening your nervous system so it can handle these alerts without going into a total meltdown. Hypervigilance keeps you in a state of fight or flight. You need simple physical tools to bring your body back to a state of calm. 2 incredibly powerful ones are right here. First, the physiological sigh. Neuroscientists have shown this is the fastest way to voluntarily calm yourself down. It's 2 quick inhales through your nose, followed by 1 long, slow exhale through your mouth. Do that 2 or 3 times. The other is grounding. Just feel the pressure of your feet planted on the floor. Name 5 things you can see in the room around you. These actions are so important because they pull your brain out of worrying about a potential future threat, and they anchor it forcefully in the safety of the present moment.
And finally, step 4. This is where you transform from being a passenger to being the pilot. You become a student of your own intuition. When you get a really strong gut feeling, take 30 seconds and just write it down. Describe the situation, who was there, and what exactly you're feeling in your body. Then, later on, maybe that night or the next day, come back to it. Were you right? If you are, try to reverse engineer what you might have noticed. Was it their tone of voice, the way they avoided a question? By doing this over and over, you start to translate that unconscious impulse into conscious knowledge. You're training yourself to be an expert analyst of your own data.
So the crucial takeaway here is this. We are not trying to switch this system off. You would never want to. That'd be like a pilot turning off their weather radar in the middle of a storm. The goal is to learn how to read the data on the screen, to understand what a little yellow blip means versus a big red one, and to decide when you need to actually change course, and when it's just a bit of turbulence you can fly through without sounding the general alarm for the whole plane.
So if you are one of these people, if you have this radar, I really want you to leave here today with a new and empowering way of looking at it. Your ability to sense things that other people miss is not a flaw. It's not a disorder. It is a sophisticated, hard-won biological adaptation. It's a testament to your resilience and your brain's incredible ability to learn and to protect you. So please don't ever again let anyone tell you that you're too sensitive. Your sensitivity is not your weakness, it is your shield.